G'day everyone. While spring is technically still a couple of weeks away, here in southern Australia we have finally started to see our first signs of spring, and with that we've also started to see a little bit of snake activity. So I thought it was a really good opportunity to check in and give you a few tips and a bit of a heads up on what you can expect with the onset of the warmer weather. Okay, so I'm here with our resident tiger snake. His name is Terry. We're just out here doing a bit of a clean. So I thought it was a good opportunity, as I said, just to give you a bit of an update on, well, what people now refer to as snake season. So we've got our first few signs of warmer weather here in southern Australia. I'm on the Mornington Peninsula here, and there has been a few snake sightings in the recent sort of week or in the last week or two. Now, those sightings are really only that, and they're sightings, and they are pretty much snakes that are emerging from their, I guess, their overwintering locations. So they're not really active as such. What they are doing is pretty much coming out and just getting a few rays just to sort of warm up as they prepare to get on the move and start feeding and then breeding with the real onset of spring weather. So Terry is one of our common species here on the Mornington Peninsula and across Melbourne really at large, or the wider Melbourne area. Again, along with the copperhead, the lowland copperhead, this is the two species that we see here most frequently or most commonly. Now, the early parts of sort of spring, whilst we've still got cold weather, but the sun is starting to warm up, snakes start to emerge from their overwintering places, as I mentioned. Now, these include things like wood piles and any sort of debris and rubbish that's lying around the home. So I guess from an awareness perspective, it's a really good opportunity for people to be aware as they start to move into their gardens a little bit more, particularly now that we've got a little bit of spare time on our hands here in Melbourne. It's a good opportunity to just pay some attention to those areas that need to be cleaned up, but also just be mindful that those areas are where snakes will have spent the cooler months, and you may start to see them. It could be under sort of sheets of iron and timber and building materials lying on the ground, or any sort of material, even under tarps and things that may be covering up stuff that you've had protected over winter. So snakes often use those areas as shelter sites during the winter periods, and what they'll do at this time of the year, they'll start to emerge, get a bit of early sun just to warm up, and then they'll retreat back to those places. So they'll be staying in those places. It's not until the weather really properly warms up through probably the latter part of September, October roughly, that they'll start to emerge and actually go looking for food. We've had a pretty wet winter, so there should be plenty of food again, like there was last year, as these guys start to emerge and go feeding. And that food item is frogs. So particularly at this time of the year. They eat other things, but frogs is what they are known as specialty eaters of. So, and that's copperheads and tigers, red belly black snakes as well. Not that we really have those down on the peninsula as such, but they are around, particularly if you're in the areas of, Llanwarren and Frankston, and as you move throughout and into the outer east and alike of Melbourne. So frogs is their main sort of diet at this time of year, and as I mentioned, it's been a pretty wet winter here in Melbourne, and that means there's lots of water around and lots of frogs for these guys to feed on. So their first sort of bit of activity as the weather warms up is they'll come out, they'll start eating some frogs and alike, and then once they've got some condition on, from that post-winter condition, if you like, that's when they'll start to be breeding, and then they'll actually start to be what we would call sort of truly active and moving around. But at the moment, it really is just about them coming out and starting to get a bit of a feel for spring, if you like, and just trying to make the most of sort of wintry conditions now that the sun's got a little bit in it. The same can be said for other reptiles like blue tongues, and that they're starting to be emerged from their overwintering sites as well. So the sightings we might be experiencing at the moment are really just that, snakes emerging from those wintering sites, and they're not really active. But they still deserve some respect, and you should be cautious at those times. Snakes are still pretty cold, but they are nonetheless there, and as long as you can see a snake, it's active and should be left alone. So having sort of speaking with other snake catchers in the region, they too, whilst we're not getting much in the way of activity of snake call-outs, we are getting calls, and they are certainly around, and they are just as I've mentioned, they are just emerging from those sort of wintering areas. So Terry here is a captive snake. So if he was a wild snake, I wouldn't be sort of holding him in this sort of manner. He's a long-term captive. And whilst he's really quite a good snake to sort of get out, and those that have actually been out to a demonstration may have even seen or met Terry, I wouldn't be handling a wild tiger snake like this. And even though he is a captive and you know, very, very, very placid and alike, as much as snakes can be, he's still quite venomous, and I, you know, sort of treat him with that sort of level of respect that he deserves. So what we'll do, as he's coming closer to my hand, we'll switch hands. We'll use the other end of the stick. I'm just using the stick here to support his weight. All right. So what I'll do is I might get Terry in his sort of box for cleaning. We'll clean his enclosure because it's spring, and he's going to want to start feeding very, very shortly soon. He hasn't eaten for a few months. I don't feed our snakes, particularly any of the venomous snakes or the mature venomous snakes, through the winter period. So he has lost a bit of condition over winter, which won't hurt him at all. And in the coming weeks, I will start to feed him as the outdoor weather starts to warm up as well. So yeah, just a quick update, guys, just to let you know that you may start seeing the odd snake around the place. But it's nothing to be alarmed at. It's perfectly sort of natural at this time of the year, but just also be mindful that if you are cleaning up around the home or around your property, it is a chance you may unearth one of these guys from their overwintering site, so you should be cautious. So don't hesitate to get in touch with, you know, a local snake catcher who can safely come out and relocate one of these guys if need be, if it can't be left where it's living. And also maybe even if you want some advice on just some snake safety and first aid and things like that, also get in touch with myself or another one of your local snake catchers. Most of us are well adept at being able to provide that sort of information. So, you know, it's a good place to start if you want any tips on safety and what you can do around your home or even your business or your workplace as snakes start to emerge at this time of the year. All right, that'll do from Terry and I for now. Stay safe, everybody. It's still difficult times for a lot of us here in Australia. But as I say, it's a good opportunity as well to be getting outside, take care of your property as spring starts to emerge. And, you know, if you do encounter one of these guys, leave them alone. No need to touch them. Just call someone in or call someone for some advice, and no one will be too far away to give you some assistance. So take care, everyone. I look forward to speaking to you all soon.